Little quick insert. I forgot to press record on my mic and didn't realize until halfway through the video, and I don't want to redo it. So, the audio is about to get kind of crappy for the next couple of minutes, but it will come back. Hang in there. Okay, let's continue. Ahoy, and welcome back to Leia's Library. Find yourself a cozy corner, get yourself something nice and cozy to drink, and let's get started. Today is our... what is it? March. Today is our March wrap-up. Yeah, that's about it. There were some pretty good books in March, so let's get into it. So the first book that I read in March was Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura, which is a YA magical realism. Our main character is Kokoro, a Japanese middle schooler, I think. I don't think she's in high school yet. Junior high. She's a junior high schooler. Listen, I'm from the middle of nowhere, Quebec. We didn't have distinguished sections of high schools, so they confuse me a lot. But she is a junior high student in Japan. But Kokoro has stopped going to school. She instead hides all day in her bedroom until one day her mirror starts glowing, and when she goes through it, she finds herself in a castle with 6 other children who are also not going to school. There they meet the Wolf Queen, who explains the rules of the castle. So this castle will become their playground and their sanctuary, and while they are there, they are tasked with finding a key, and this key unlocks a hidden room, and whoever unlocks the room will be granted a single wish. However, another rule of the castle is that they cannot stay past 5 p.m., otherwise they will be eaten by a wolf. This might be one of my favorite books of the year so far. I really enjoyed it. I loved how this book explored isolation and loneliness and social anxiety in like teenagers, or I guess they're teenagers. I don't think it ever really says how old they are, but they're somewhere between 12 and 14. I don't know how old a junior high student is supposed to be. So I said social anxiety. None of the characters are officially like diagnosed with social anxiety as far as I can remember, but as someone who is diagnosed with social anxiety, a lot of the things these characters described really resonated with me. How something as simple as going to the store can seem so insurmountably impossible that just the idea is too much. That really hit. A thing I have learned from this book, and A Tale for the Time Being, is that Japanese students do not mess around when it comes to bullying. Oh my gosh. This book really shines a light on what a lot of Japanese students endure in the classroom in regards to bullying, and it's a lot. I recently compared this book to Studio Ghibli movies like When Marnie Was Here and Whisper of the Heart in another video I did, which I will link in the description. And I just wanted to reiterate that because it shares the same sort of slow, melancholic yet hopeful tone that those films have. This is very character focused. There's actually barely any mention of actually searching for the key, which is supposed to be the plot, but it's mostly just the kids learning about each other and kind of figuring out how to cope with their respective problems. I really, really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. I gave it a full 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Girl and the Ghost by Hanna Alkaf, which is a middle grade magical realism horror. So it is about Soraya, whose witch grandmother gifts her a pelicet, otherwise known as a familiar spirit. Kind of think in line with like a witch's familiar is usually a cat. but this is Malaysian folklore, so a pelicit is more like it's more akin to a ghost, but it's a ghostly familiar spirit. So Soraya receives one from her grandmother, and she is delighted. The two form a quick friendship, and Soraya names her ghostly companion Pink. But what Soraya doesn't know is that pelicits have a dark side, and when Pink's dark side becomes apparent, Soraya will have to decide whether this friendship is worth fighting for. This is another one that gave me Studio Ghibli vibes, but maybe more so along the lines of Princess Mononoke, because this book can get surprisingly dark. The description makes it sound very lighthearted and whimsical, and that is a part of it. But a bigger part is a lot more grim and full of disturbing imagery, and I was not expecting that. I still liked it, but that was a surprise. This book is really about jealousy and loneliness and coping mechanisms that we develop that might not be the healthiest, and learning to outgrow them and find healthier ones as you grow older. Another way the description is slightly misleading is that it makes it sound like it's from Soraya's point of view, but actually most of it is actually from Pink's point of view. We do definitely get a lot of Soraya's point of view, but it starts out with Pink's, and I'd say it's probably like 60-40. Between Pink and Soraya. I love that we got Pink's point of view because I love looking through the eyes of non-human characters in stories. I always find that so interesting. I don't know, I often feel like a non-human creature looking in on humanity from the outside, so that always resonates with me. Is it maybe because the only asexual representation I can usually find are like aliens and robots and stuff? Maybe. Psychoanalyze me, why don't you? But yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Pink's point of view when it came to his relationship with Soraya, and I liked how their connection developed and how it changed over the course of the book as Soraya grows up. Oh, okay, some people might misinterpret that. It is never at any point a romantic relationship. Let's make that very clear. I do think, so without going into spoilers, Pink's turn toward the latter part of the book, I did find that a little fast, and I wish the description had made it clearer just how grim or like disturbing the imagery would be, but I still enjoyed it and would recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson, which is an epic fantasy novella. The story takes place after Words of Radiance in the Stormlight Archive series, and it follows Lift, the barely teenage Night Radiant, as she hunts down the relentless and terrifying executioner she calls the Darkness. I somehow only just found out about these novellas. I'm so behind. I love the Stormlight Archives, they are one of my favorite series, and somehow I just literally did not know these existed. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I was never a huge fan of Lift. I just found her kind of annoying, and the way she misunderstood certain basic things just felt a little contrived to me sometimes, and I couldn't tell. Definitely sometimes it's willful misunderstanding, which makes more sense to me, but sometimes I can't tell if it's willful misunderstanding or if it's just, it would be funny if she didn't understand this. Haha, I'm not laughing. But after reading this novella, I do like her a little more because I have a better understanding of why she acts the way she does. I enjoy this book. I do think it's a little long. It's a novella, but it's almost 300 pages long, so I feel like we're past the point of a novella, and I don't think it needed to be that long. Overall, I think it's a cute story that just could have been trimmed down a bit. I don't know if it's 100% necessary in order to understand Oathbringer, the book that comes after it, but it's cute. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson again, which is another epic fantasy novella. This one takes place after Oathbringer and follows shipowner, I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly, Ryson Ftori? Ryson? I think it's Ryson. So, follows shipowner Ryson Ftori, who lost her legs but gained a companion in the form of Chiri, a stormlight-eating winged larkin. When a ghost ship is discovered, its crew presumed dead, Navani Colin sends Ryson and her crew to investigate the mysterious island Akina, where the ghost ship had been sent to explore. Ryson is eager to take on the quest because Chiri has fallen ill and her only hope for a cure might be Akina. Again, with a novel-sized novella. Why? Why call them novellas at this point? This one, the length did feel a little bit more warranted, though. There's a larger cast of characters in it. We get multiple points of view. I definitely enjoyed this one more, and I didn't feel like the length detracted from it. I don't want to say too much because there's like a lot of spoilers in it, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought it was a great read, and I highly recommend it. I mean, if you're reading the Stormlight Archives. If you're not reading the Stormlight Archives, you will not understand what's going on. But as a companion to Oathbringer and before Rhythm of War, highly recommend. 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I finished in March was Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a LGBTQ+ horror, and it follows a married couple, Miri and Leah. Leah is a marine biologist who is sent on a 3-week-long marine expedition, like in a submarine expedition. But something goes wrong, and Leah comes back 6 months later, but she comes back wrong. The one word that I wrote down as a initial review for this book was haunting. I feel like this book is especially geared towards me because 2 of my like biggest fears are, 1, the ocean. It just creeps me out. I don't like to think about it too much. And 2, people coming back wrong. Listen, I don't know how much of it is a psychosis thing or how much of it is an anxiety thing, but there have definitely been periods in my life where someone that I knew well would do like the tiniest thing possibly out of character, something that I deemed out of character, and my brain would instantly go, they're possessed. And then I would have to convince myself that they're probably not, they're probably fine, but just people that you know very well behaving strangely, heebie-jeebies. Reading this book feels like watching a car crash in slow motion, because everything is awful, and you know it can't stop, and you know it's probably going to end terribly, but you just can't take your eyes away. This book isn't, like, in-your-face horrific. It's more of a slow burn, drawn-out horror. Almost, like, half of the horror is psychological, and the other half is actually, it's almost like an apathetic horror, which I think is almost scarier, because it plays on something that genuinely creeps me out, again, which is when people are not nearly as concerned as they should be about something that is very clearly concerning. The story begins after Leah has been back for some time. I think it's been a couple months, perhaps. And Miri is sort of used to the new normal of their lives, but you as a reader are not. So Leah will do something inhuman, and Miri will just kind of go, oh, all right, let's handle this. And me as a reader, I was just like, oh, call the church. Like, girl, you are not concerned enough. one of the really cool things about this book is that you can interpret it in a number of different ways. In some ways, the way that Miri clings to Leah, even after she is clearly not the Leah that she used to be, is very reminiscent of like a loved one passing away, but you're clinging so hard to their memory that it's almost like they're still there, like they're haunting your life almost. Another is that this could all be a metaphor for being in a relationship that clearly died some time ago, but you're both still carrying on with the motions because you don't know what else to do. I just find it really fascinating, and like I think there are so many different interpretations. It's really cool. The one thing that it's not even that I disliked, but the one thing is that I wish I had just a bit more info. I won't go into spoilers or anything, but the ending is very open and doesn't have a lot of details. And I just wish we'd been given one extra detail on how we got from point A to point B with Leah. But other than that, a truly fantastic read. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It should also be said that this month I started To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Yeah, I think that's his name. the guy who wrote Aragon. Yeah. I started that and I got like 200 pages in. And it's not bad by any means. It is not a bad story. The only thing is that it is very long. It is very detailed. And it felt very heavy in my brain, so I had to take a break and go read like 5 other books. But hopefully I will finish it next month. Or this month. Hopefully. And those are all the books on the list for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite book of the month was. Mine was either Our Wives Under the Sea or Lonely Castle in the Mirror. Those two are pretty tied. And my least favorite would be Edgedancer. Even though it was still good, but it is my least favorite of all the ones I read this month. So yeah, if you'd like to find me elsewhere, you can find me on Instagram as Leia Like the Princess, where you can also find my embroidery and art store, Moonlit Cat Creations, or you can go directly to its website at moonlightcatcreations.com. And we are still crowdfunding for my Fringe show this year, so you can find the link to that in the description as well if you would like to donate or share it around. Either would be super helpful, and we'd be very appreciative. Until next time, stay cozy.